What's up and welcome back, my little bronies. We're here on the line for my very first Enduro, which just happens to be a hard one. And this was also Iowa's first time hosting a hard Enduro. I think. It's gotta be, right? Now don't go fact check me, but we're gonna say it's Iowa's first hard Enduro. It's also my first hard Enduro, so a lot of virginity's at stake here. Let's get into it. So we take off for what is the first race out of a potential 3. So this one they call the hot lap, and basically at sign up you're able to pick your row and starting position. Now how fast you finish this hot lap will determine the order that you start for race 2. And in race 2 the difficulty will increase from what it was in this hot lap. The top 50 riders from that race will then advance to the third and most difficult race. This hot lap that we're on is supposed to be pretty mild, something that, all the classes can make it through, but at the same time, quite a bit harder and more technical than your average hare scramble. For now though, we're wrapping up the start sequence, which was a lot of open area where you could just kind of keep the bike pinned and hopefully create some space between you and the next guy before getting into the obstacles. Coming up to this first little hill, I got target fixation and I had my eyes locked on what I was getting ready to go up, and I almost fell victim to this little drainage ditch. We start working our way up and you can see there's already somebody that's having some issues at the very bottom of this hill. And as we continue going up, you'll see it's only gonna get worse as we're 2 seconds into the first obstacle and we already have a 3-man pileup going on. This guy decides he's also gonna throw his name in the mix even though the trail is completely blocked off. Then he ends up fucking it up too, so I give him that good old fashioned Midwestern, I'm just gonna slide right by you here. Thanks. Now I'd say we're officially off and running, so let's see what this hard enduro hot lap stuff is all about. As we get in behind this guy, you'll see some of the effects of the storm we had leading up to this race. Nothing too crazy, but enough to add a degree of difficulty to some of the sections, mostly just the ones with a lot of rock. I ended up following some guy off the track, but luckily I got some of my local homies here to help point me in the right direction. We'll talk a little bit more about how big of an advantage it was having these guys around when we get to the next race. For now though, we're trucking along and we come up to this hill that I couldn't see the top of as I was rolling up. So taking the cautious approach, we make sure there's no surprises up there, get ourselves lined up, and we're off. Obviously we all know the GoPro does no justice to hills, but this one wasn't too bad. Pretty good warm up though. You probably heard me praising the bike and saying how much I loved it, so I guess that would mean this is probably a good time to talk about what I'm riding here. So I'm on a 2014 KTM 300 XC, and it's got a Recluse clutch in it, which makes it about as close to a cheater bike as you could get. But to balance that out, I have just kind of a run-of-the-mill random Michelin Starcross 5 medium tire on it that's a little bit chewed up, so not exactly the tire that you'd want for a hard enduro, but she's hooking up pretty good. Most of the guys though that know what they're doing, or the people who actually race hard enduros, they'll run some type of gummy tire, and I'm sure there's hundreds of different kinds, but you're about to see why. So apparently more gas is not always the answer. Was that struggle 90% based on my technique? Yes, but that tire definitely was not doing me any favors. Not in the rocks anyways. Now keep in mind, I'm from the Illinois and Iowa area, and this is not typical terrain for around here. This property has it and maybe a few others scattered throughout our area, but normally you have to go pretty far south to get into any place that has substantial rock formation like this. So not only was it my first hard enduro, but it was my first time dealing with real rocks. Alright, so rolling up to this next obstacle, we see there's a little bit of a log jam going on, and I'm looking really hard to the left. There's already a line that's burnt in. I go as far as even rolling up it halfway and then coming back down. I probably should have just went, but we end up waiting for things to clear out and take the substantially more difficult way. Sending the bike was probably a little dramatic, but hey, up is up. We get to this next section and I gotta take these goggles off. They're steaming up and getting hot, but the obstacle here is kind of deceiving. It looks fairly simple. It's this off camber with a log sticking out into this rock face where you gotta squeeze between. And the guy in front of us made it look real easy, so we're going for it, and bam! I smacked my face into this rock. Got myself wedged in there pretty good too, but there was also a lot of other scuffs and paint marks on that rock, so I don't think I was the only one. Next up, we're rolling into this hill climb blind, and if I had to go all the way to the top with all these rocks and tree roots, I don't think I would have made it, but luckily there's this little bypass lane that we're able to get off into and get up the rest of the way. Then we get in behind Larry, who I just met, pitting together with some mutual friends the night before, and look at this. Just when you think a guy's your friend, he roosts you in the mouth and throws some shit on your GoPro. Y'all are just gonna have to deal with it though, because some of this terrain was just a little too good to cut out. This next hill, I specifically remember walking the track before it was burnt in and going, there is no way I'm making it up that. And then I get on the bike and just whoop, shoot right up it. Like, I think that's one of the major things that makes this hard enduro experience so rewarding, is just finding where the limit of what you can actually do on a dirt bike is. And there's just this insane amount of gratification that comes from being able to do more than what you originally thought that limit was. Alright, time to out myself a little bit here. We get Larry going up this hill. When he gets to the top, it comes off the bike and it looks like his bike might be blocking the trail. So instead of sitting there waiting, I kind of veer off to the right here and I start looking for a different place to go up. I didn't walk this part of the trail, and as I'm looking for an alternate route to get up, I start seeing arrows, and as I'm coming back onto the race course in front of Larry, I realize I kind of just skipped a major obstacle. So here's my thoughts in real time.
I don't know.
The answer to that question, I'm sure, is yes, but stay with me here. We'll get redemption on that obstacle in race 2. Getting into this creek section, there's nothing too hard about it, but again, this is not normal terrain for us, so I am having an absolute blast riding through here. This hill, even on GoPro, I think you can kind of tell it's steep, and I was surprised to get up it considering how much momentum I lost at the beginning of it, but I think there was just enough dirt left covering the rocks and roots that my Michelins were still able to hook up. We go by this guy who's having some struggles here, and we work our way into this off-camber entrance to a hill climb. As we start to come around the turn, we look up and notice that 1, it's a pretty damn steep hill, and 2, there's a lot of commotion going on at the top. We come to a stop, assess our options. I decide once again that I'm not gonna wait, and from a dead stop, say what you will about going off course, but I am fairly proud of this line to get around these guys. We come into this section that was a series of really long, windy uphills. Wasn't the hardest thing in the world, but the fun factor was through the roof. It made for some really good riding. We jump forward to playing in some more dirt covered rocks, which I need all the practice I can get as far as that goes, but just look at this scenery, man. I don't know, it makes me feel like I'm riding in Iceland or something. It really feels that far away from the norm of what we ride here in Illinois and Iowa. I mean, it might as well be the surface of Mars. Like, it's that alien. And I'm so glad that they put on this race and we were able to get some exposure to this type of stuff. One of our few mistakes comes as a simple tip over entering this downhill, but of course I'm going to compound that with a bike recovery mission that also does not go so hot. Rolling up to this section, it looks like we got Leighton giving some advice.
How you doing, Leighton? See that shiny rut right there? Try to carry enough momentum to get over it. Once you get over that,
Must have been getting steamy because the goggles are off and flopping around as we head into this ravine, which I handle pretty well. Leave it to me though to get to the top with no problem and then tip over on flat ground. This hill will show you why a 300 with the Recluse is just cheating. Alright, so if I'm going to have one takeaway of something that I need to work on after this hot lap, it's these weird off-camber, downhill, squeeze yourself between 2 points scenarios that the first time ended up in a face plant. This time I got myself wedged in here for I don't know how long, and then when I did get out, we get back into some more of these tight, long, single track hill climbs, and the guy in front of me is going to have a little bit of a mishap. I about bust my ass trying to roll back to flat ground here. We got the bike with the hanging idle getting hot, about to dump out some coolant. If you've learned anything about me so far, you know I'm not going to wait, and it's about time for a little off-course excursion, baby. What goes up must come down, but unfortunately I'm trying to take the worst line down, so I have to call in a favor from Terry and ask him to put that thing in reverse.
Bag up, Terry. Put it in reverse, Terry. Put it in reverse. Oh, Lord.
After finally getting that situation sorted, we pull up to what looks like the most obvious trap, like somebody laid these logs down. And I know what I want to do. I want to jump over the things, but I also need to know my limits, so we just kind of... What happens next, I really got no words for, but you can just listen to my real-time thoughts.
Oh, that was weak.
Then again, from a dead stop, just cheating with that Recluse. We come up to this creek and it's just enough to get the tip. I mean, your tire's wet. Turn the corner and yep, it all makes sense. We got 3 big slippery logs in a series. We kind of get a roll up to see what we're dealing with, turn around, square things up, and we're going to give her a go. But first, things are getting pretty serious. Can't have these goggles distract me, so I'm going to toss them to this guy. And it's honestly a pretty nice pitch and catch if you ask me. It's go time, baby. We roll up kind of slow, then bam, we hit this first one. I kind of would have liked to get them all in series, you know, just carry momentum and boing, 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 but that was not in the cards today, so we kind of get her backed up and ready for the second one. Number 2, we hit from this kind of seated position. We get over just fine, but we slide a little bit. That kicks us sideways, so we're going to have to get realigned to hit log number 3. Take off for number 3 and everything's going good until whoa, a little bit of whiskey throttle. I came close, but I managed not to take anybody out, so we're gonna grab our goggles and be on our way. But somebody was there to capture some pictures of the whole sequence. Leaving there, we can pretty much smell the finish line. We're trying to run through the gears and get there as quick as possible, but I go to make a shift, I look down and I'm like, whoa, that's not right. We didn't have far to go, so not much time was lost, but as we go through this little tire gauntlet, I want to take a second to say thank you for watching, and hopefully we see you back here for part 2, race 2, where things get a little bit tougher. Until then, peace.
Thank you.